Hi there. Back at Algebra 1 here. Yeah, hopefully you got a little bit out of yesterday's and we'll work on it a little bit more today. Um, and the fact of what we exactly have to do. Now, before we were kind of looking at parabolas and what they shaped like and this and that. Today we're going to look at solving quadratic equations, which is going to still have parabolas, in which we will look at some parabolas, but we're looking for more of the roots of the equation, which is a vocab word of today, or the zero functions. Okay, so you got a quadratic equations. Quadratic equation is an equation that can be written in the form of ax to the second plus bx plus c equals 0. Now that what I just rumbled off, that is your standard form of equation. Now obviously a quadratic equation does not have to be in standard form. It can start out, but it has to have a to the x to the second plus bx plus c. So if you ever have a question about it, just get it into standard form, and that should tell you. You're obviously not going to have anything above the or the second power on it. Okay. And then the roots of an equation, or the zeros of the function, which are going to be our answers, our solutions, are the solutions of a quadratic equation and the x and y intercept graph of the related function. Now, just like yesterday, struggling a little bit on the fact of using this Google PowerPoint. It's not quite as nice as regular PowerPoint. Now, looking at this first one, I kind of have it answered, and I've kind of looked through the next one a little bit. You have the equation x to the second minus 1 equals 0. Now, if we put in y for 0, trying to solve and figure out where our other points are, this is the equation when y is equal to 0, but we sometimes need to find this out. Now, y equals x to the second minus 1. So, when we do this, we're going to come up with the fact that obviously I can draw this right away. I find my vertex is shifted down 1. Because of the fact that right there we were kind of solving for it. So you're at 0, 1. Because our x would be 0, and then if you wouldn't use the equation from yesterday, you would find 0 is in there, and then you'd have to solve for y, in which case y would be negative 1. So we end up with our vertex being right here. Now, on this next one, we're going to find out where it crosses the x-intercept. So if we put in 0 here, we get y is negative 1. Now, the other day on your lesson, you found out that basically you solve for one side and you can find out the other by going across that axis of symmetry in a parabola. So in this case, this is going to be the same thing. Now, the nice thing about this is we know our solutions are negative 1 and 1, because that is our roots of the equation. That is where it crosses the x-intercept, and that's what we're looking for today. Okay, so that's our solutions. Now, if you go down a little farther, I have solution equals plus or minus 1. That's how they're going to put the answers, because that's telling you it can be negative 1 or it could be positive 1. Now, being that it is a parabola, we know that it will cross the axis, or the x-axis, twice. There's only a little bit of a chance, and that'd be if it was sideways, but you have not seen those yet, and we might not see those until Algebra 2 at this rate. Okay, now, with that being said, now let's go to the next one. This equation is technically 3x to the second plus 6 equals 0. Now, this point here is at 6, 0, because if we did basically yesterday's in the fact of doing the negative b over 2a, you're going to get 0. You put 0 into this equation. This is supposed to be y. Put 0 into this equation, you're going to get y equals 6. So vertex is going to obviously be at that. Okay? 0 squared plus 6 equals y. Y equals 6. Okay, now I have everything on that. So I drew that point. Now, I need where x is 0. Well, if I put in x is 0, x is 0, I'm going to get, that gets me my vertex. I want y at 0. So if I put y in here at 0, I am going to end up getting a number that is, so like I said, I just messed up. Okay, so y would be 0 because we need to cross the x-axis, and that's going to happen where y is 0, right? Because that's where the axis of symmetry is going. No, it'd be where x is going to be. What am I? Okay, so if this is 0, and obviously this equation is 0, so if I put this into this equation to get it, I'm going to get 6 equals 0, right? Or in the last equation, I was getting some answers. This is going to give me 6 equals 0. So if that is the case, then I don't have any solutions because 6 does not equal 0. So 6 does not equal 0, which then means that this is no solutions. Now, I hope I didn't confuse you too much on that. I was a little baffled myself on that one as we were going through it. I thought I had it completely figured out, and then I kind of threw myself for a loop. Okay, now, the second one, or third one, I guess, you're going to plus 25 to both sides. Okay. You're going to get x to the second equals 0. Okay. So, if you would go y equals 0, you're going to get, or y equals x to the second, you're going to get 0, 0. Well, now, the one thing about 0, 0 is you can't go through 0 twice, can you? So this is actually going to be our vertice, but it does cross our x-intercept, which then makes it so we know there is only the one solution, and it's at 0. This is our answer on this one. Now, the graphing way is probably not the easiest way to understand this, I'll be honest. The last graph, what's going to take place is it's going to go upwards. And that's why we get no solution on this one right here, is because of the fact that this graph should go up direction. Obviously, one way you can see that happening is if there isn't a negative here, it's going to go up. Well, it's already above 0. So therefore, you know it's going to keep going farther and farther up. Now, like I said, I kind of confused you guys on that, and I hope you see now what I'm saying is you found your vertex, where your vertex is going to be from yesterday's assignment, and now you're going to basically know that this is going upwards because it's not negative. Well, you're already above the x-intercept, which then means you can't go through it if you're just going to keep going above it. Okay? And like I said, this last one, not the easiest to graph because of the fact that it is at 0, 0. So there's only one spot it crosses the x-axis. Okay? Now, another thing to this. Go. Now, we're going to do it the way that I like to do it, over graphing. But you have to do it this way to start out. So, you'd end up solving this for m plus 36 to both sides. So you got m squared equals 36. Now, square root both sides, because that's how you get rid of a square. Now, when you square root both sides, you must put a plus or minus the square root of 36 over here, m squared. So, you're going to end up with m equals plus or minus. What's the square root of 36? Well, it's 6. So there's your answer on that one. That one gives both of you. I prefer this method. I love this method. And that's probably why the graphing was bothering me, because I could go through and do this in my head and know for sure how it was going to go. Where the graphing method, you have to think a little bit more in the lessons that we have just done. And with knowing what was coming up and that, I was kind of mixing them up. But anyway, still my fault. This one, you're going to minus 15 to both sides. You're going to get 3x to the second equals negative 15. Now, you got to divide by 3. You got to get this down to the x before we do anything. X to the second equals negative 5. Now, square root both sides, square root both sides. Now, this should throw a red flag. Can we ever have a negative square root? The answer to that should be no. We should never ever have a square root. So, this is no solutions. So, you cannot have a square root. A negative square root. Okay, so we have that now. Okay, so that one is no solutions. There is our answer on that one. Okay, this one was that. Okay, so now doing the very last one. Okay, so you have 4D plus 16. So this is kind of going back to the graphing one. Now you minus 16 from both sides. Minus 16 both sides. You have 4D to the second equals negative or equals 0. Divide by 4. We can divide 0 by 4. We can't divide by 0, but we can decide a number by, or we can take 0 divided by something. So we get D second or to the second equals 0. That square root both sides. You're going to get D equals 0. Your solution is 0. Okay? Now, last problem here. Shouldn't be super hard here. You have an aquarium that is designed to create an exhibit to showcase tropical fish. The exhibit will include a tank that is a rectangle prism with a length that is twice the width. The volume of the tank is 420 feet cubed. What is the width of the tank to the nearest tenth of a foot? Well, to find volume of a rectangular prism, we have length times width times height equals 420 feet. Now, we have L here, so L goes right there, and W here. Okay, so, and we know the length equals 2W, so L equals 2W. 2W times W times 3 equals 420 feet. Okay? Now, we can multiply this together. You're going to get 2W to the second, because when you multiply, you add your exponents, times 3. Well, you can take 3 times 2, which gets you 6W to the second equals 420 feet. Now, divide that by 6, divide that by 6, you get W to the second equals 70 feet. Square root. W is going to get you some kind of fraction or decimal, in which case should be about 8.36 dot. So about 8.4 feet. Okay. Once again, going with the worksheets. Just because of the fact that I can assign it to all you guys. Just doing 12 problems. Once again, Algebra 1 students in Doland. Don't forget to do your flip grid, because the fact that gives you some points, and it also makes it so you're helping others maybe understand it. It's pretty well easy points. Does take a little bit of time, and don't forget to also go and respond to your classmates' questions and try to help them out in a positive way. Anyway, have a good day.